Hello and welcome to the Hidden Hockey Podcast. Again, my name's Matt Gordon. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm going to do a quick live stream for about an hour or so, just talking about the 2024 NHL Draft. It's a very early mock. Now that Helenka Gretzky, um, now the Helenka Gretzky Cup has finished, I felt like I needed to put out a mock. We can talk a little bit about prospects for those that are just joining who haven't been on before. Anybody who's previously subscribed, thank you. Hopefully, you watch this later on. Leave a comment below. Feel free to leave comments at all. I answer to any and all. And really excited to kind of get more focused on the 2024 draft and get started with that. As far as the draft goes this year, early thoughts that I have, I would say that this year is very USHL heavy. I will say that there is a ton of really good prospects across the board. The Finns have a great year this year, in my opinion, as well as the Swedes. I think the Swedes have a really good class this year. The USA class for the National Development Program has a couple of really good hockey players that I think are worth watching and some good depth players that are along the road. I would say the class is a little bit weaker than last year's, but not too much weaker. But we'll see as we go through here. We'll talk more about the different players, what they're about, and go into more about what the strengths are and what their weaknesses are. Again, as always, I'm going to be coming out with more live stream content as well as more video content in the upcoming weeks, and I'm really excited to get this going with everybody else. Again, sit back, relax, and enjoy what's going to be a ball-to-ball coverage this year of different prospects, different NHL draft coverages, and different things that you're going to be really excited to see going forward here in the next year. So let's start off with our number one overall pick. To me, he's been just here for a little bit. I was in between Cole and him, but Macklin Celebrini plays for the played last year for the Chicago Steel in the USHL, similar to Adam Fantilli, who went number 3 to Columbus in the past draft. Macklin Celebrini, to me, is a player that is of a Fantilli mold. Right now, to me, he is the number one overall pick, and there's a bit of a gap right now. I think between him and Cole Eiserman, I've watched Cole Eiserman in 3 or 4 games so far. Plan to watch him a lot more this year. Macklin just looks more like a game breaker. He looks like he's got more talent, more ability, and he's able to really game break the game really well. So I'm going to share the tab with you. He's going to Boston University next year. You look up his intangibles. He's 5'11", 181. Widely ranked as well is a consensus number 1 by Daily Faceoff, the ranking done by Chris Peters, as well as the overall consolidated ranking on elite prospects. So look through his career as a Shattuck St. Mary's product, put up massive points over at that level, and then went over to the Chicago Steel and did really well. The U18s, though, was his real breakout party from Cole Eiserman. Cole Eiserman was a guy who was perceived to be the number one based on his season and what he was able to do at the United States Development Program, which I'm going to get into more later. But Macklin Celebrini came out and played incredibly well at the U18s and blew out, a lot of the competition there. And it was really impressive in the short tournament there with 15 points in 7 games as a double underager. And you look through and he's just dominated through his whole career. Really impressive player. High-end skill, good ability. He comes back here. Let me come back to the draft here. He comes back with a great skill set, good hands, really explosive, good eye for the net. He's just got a pro mindset. Love his ability to play the game and the way he handles himself, not only in traffic, but through his own game and everything like that. So he's a really exciting prospect, somebody you're going to really look forward to seeing in the coming months. My number 2 overall goes to Cole Eiserman. He plays at the United States Development Program, also a product of Shattuck St. Mary. Has come in and is now playing in the USHL for the U18 program. Has led the U18 program, led the U17s really well last year. Great shot, unbelievable goal scorer. The only thing is that I don't think he's demonstrative enough on the puck yet. Hopefully this year that'll be something that he works on in his game. and we'll go to his tab now. So Cole Eisman, big kid, little young for the draft even. He's, only 2 weeks away from being a 2025 kid, but he's a guy who's listed at 5'11", looks to me more like a 6-foot guy in a $192. Widely considered the second overall pick as well by Chris Peters and in the consensus for right now. A lot of people in his family. Shane Eiserman is another guy, 94 born or 93 born, I believe, that got an opportunity to play in the National Hockey League, and he has some other siblings as well that have done so. Like I said before, he played for Shattuck St. Mary. As a 15-year-old, played on the prep team just like Macklin Celebrini did, and absolutely lit it up. Went on to play at the U17s and the U18 program last year. Absolutely torched it, and then went on to play really well at the World Hockey Championships, paired up with James Higgins, the 2025 top 3 pick as of right now for me. Very skilled player, good ability, and then he went to the U18s and played really well as well. They're averaging more than a goal per game, and as you can see by his score sheet, he's a guy who clearly scores a lot of goals and does so frequently. Another kid who's going to go on to play college hockey at the University of Minnesota next year in 2024, 2025. And he's going to be highly, highly expected to do well at the U18 program this year. So we're going to move now to we're going to move to the mock draft came off for a little bit. We're going to go to the 3rd overall pick, and that's Ivan Demidov. Ivan Demidov is a kid with a lot of controversy. He's a Russian kid. Similar to a Matvei Michkov, I would say he's a step below a Matvei Michkov, but a very good player nonetheless. Right now, I have him ranked at 3. I really think this kid's going to be a superstar. He's a late-born 2005 prospect. A little older than everybody else, but a great skater, good vision, good ability, good hands, and a tremendous skill set. Really does a lot with the little, really does a lot. Another player that's around 5'11", 6 foot, good hands, good ability. Make sure he's doing the right things. He stays forward, and he's an incredibly tenacious guy. I think his playmaking ability is probably some of the best in the draft. I put him right up there with a Celebrini. Really just smart hockey player, good hockey IQ, plays like a really smart Russian player normally does. I'm not big for player comparisons. I don't think he compares really strongly to anybody. But you get Kaprizov vibes slightly off this kid. He's a bigger version of him. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be super talented. And if you can get him in the National Hockey League by 2024, 2025, or the year after, I think you're getting a really good prospect here in Ivan Demidov from Russia. Number 4 is going to be Michael Hage, another kid who comes from the Chicago Steel program. I'm going to go share this tab now. Michael Hage is a forward that was injured a lot last year. He dealt with a lot of injury issues. Really talented player coming out of the Junior Canadians program and thought to be an OHL guy until he shocked the world and went the USHL route. I have him really aggressively ranked at 4 because I believe in his upside. Others have him just outside the first round right now. I think he's a guy who's got an incredible talent. You can see as he played here, last bit of the year, he goes on to play 13 games, 10 points, and then gets 2 assists, and, 2 points in the playoffs. He's going to be expected this year to really lead a really strong Chicago Steel program and do a lot of offense as well. Another kid going to the college route. He's going to go to University of Michigan, and a really talented player, somebody who's been able to prove it every step of the way. You can see her at his tournament play when he was, in his teenage years and stuff like that. He's an incredible hockey player, somebody who really brings it all to the table, and it's exciting to see this going forward here in the the 2024 draft. So we're going to move on here to the 5th overall player. I'm going to share my screen real quick. My 5th overall guy is Artem Levshinov, a Belarusian player. He plays at the USHL level. I will go ahead and share my screen. Artem Levshinov, he's committed to go this year to Michigan State. Late 04 born kid. I love this kid's game. I'm telling you right now, the modern defenseman to a T. Big kid at 6'2". I would argue he's probably even going to be taller than that. He might be a 6'3", 6'4" defenseman. If you have him at about 215 probably by the end of this year, this kid to me is a number one defenseman through and through. By far, I wouldn't say by far. I would say one of the 3 big talents in this draft for defensemen. Like I said in the title of this, the year of the defenseman is this year. Artem Levshinov to me is the top prize, but you got other guys that are really challenging and really going to knock him off here. I think to me he looks like a bona fide top 10 pick. He looks like he could be in the top 5. That's why I have him at 5 right now. Made the decision recently that he was going to go to Michigan State University. Everybody thought he was going to take another USHL year. You can look at his stats here. 15-year-old playing at the under 20 at the 1A level and put up 2 points. Goes on to play at the USHL level last year as a rookie. Absolutely lights it up. Does an incredible job as a player. Really impressive in his first year. And then they got knocked off early in the playoffs. But to have him play college hockey this year, it's going to be a very interesting step for him. I'm really excited to see where he goes from here. And we'll see what kind of player we got here in Artem Levshinov. But you're looking at a guy, incredible breakout player. He knows how to pass the puck. He can headman a power play. He can manage your penalty kill. He can skate out of the zone. He's physical when he has to be. There is not a weakness in this kid's game whatsoever. I think there's a ton of potential in his game. I love the way he goes about his business, and he just manages everything so well. We're going to go now to number 6, and my number 6 pick is a kid who I've seen locally 2 or 3 times. Looking to see a lot more of him this year, and that's in Zane Parikh. He plays for the Saginaw Spirit at the OHL level. Love this kid's game. He's the first kid I have on my board that's playing CHL hockey. I love this kid's game. He's like a rover type player. I'm going to show you his profile here. Very similar to a Kel McCarr, very similar to a like a Torrey Krug type player, smaller guy. Finds his way around pucks. Doesn't play overly physical, but he can get the puck around everywhere. I just love his overall game. You see the likes of McCarr and Carlson. This kid fits right in that mold. 6 foot, generously listed at $170. Another kid to me who I just love his game. I think he's so talented. A lot of potential there. Great hands. The thing that impresses me the most about Zane Parikh is his ability to break down defensive schemes. He gets in the zone. He'll get below the dots. He'll come back out at the point. He'll find lanes. He'll skate out himself into lanes. Unbelievable talent. He actually broke the record for most goals by a 16-year-old defenseman this year in the OHL with 21 goals. Then went on in the playoffs to have almost nearly a point per game on a really, really talented Saginaw Spirit team. Excited to see him. He's going to have the opportunity to go to a Memorial Cup this year, really up his draft stock. I think the sky's the limit for this kid. Another kid who looks like a very good top pairing defenseman, in my opinion, can light it up with everybody. He reminds me a lot. If I were to compare him to anybody that I've seen as a 16-year-old, it would be Jamie Drysdale. I think he's even got the skills to be as good as Jamie Drysdale is now. I think there's a ton of potential with this kid, but I love his game. Love the way he skates. Love the way he manages pucks. Played in the Holenka Gretzky tournament recently. Played okay. Didn't play outstanding, which was surprising. But he did enough to really show himself and acquit himself well as well. Like this kid a lot. I have him at 6 in mind, but I think, he goes in the top 10 in almost every draft. He's just a really talented hockey player. So now we're going to go on to the third of our 7 defensemen, and a guy who I originally had ranked number 1 12 months ago. And that's Aaron Kiviharhu. So why the drop? Aaron Kiviharhu is at a lot of lot of issues with injuries early in his career, right? He has been known on the scouting circles for many people since the age of 13. Um, Unbelievable talent, did some amazing things as double underagers at the World Selects Invitational, playing as a 9-year-old in a 12-year-old tournament amongst the best 12-year-olds in the world and putting up a point per game, doing some unbelievable, unprecedented type stuff. And then he got some leg injuries. So he's had 2 different leg injuries, from my understanding, and he's had some knee issues as well. That being said, his skating's still really good. I think for somebody who's battled with those injuries, he's done a tremendous job to get himself back into the skating shape he needs to be in. Really skilled in terms of his ability, the way he handles pucks. Great breakout guy. Similar vein to Zane and Art Young, but I think they have more upside build. Or I think Aaron's closer to his ceiling right now. I think he's at minimum a floor guy who could be a top 4 defenseman. I think if he can continue to grow and get bigger and get stronger, I think he's got the ability to go and, be a top pairing defenseman as well. I'm going to go right to his profile. Smaller guy here at about 5'10" and $160. But just a talented hockey player. Already playing pro hockey. He's played last year in the pro level and will again this year. Playing now for AHIFK. Played the U18s last year, had pretty good success in the year before as well. So he could have played this year. They decided not to put him on there, but they did put him at the U18s last year, and he did really well. This is a kid who was clearly advanced above his level, has done a lot of great things. You can look at the scoring potential here. He's done some unbelievable stuff with the time he's had in the pro level. Still hasn't scored his first professional goal yet, but that'll come this year. Just too talented of a player not to get to where he wants to be. You can see the stats where I was mentioning earlier as a 9-year-old put up unbelievable points here at this tournament. And somebody that is incredibly impressive when you watch him play. He's just done an immense amount of skill potential. Really like his game. He's going to be a superstar in the hockey league. He's going to be a superstar in the National Hockey League if he can stay healthy, if he can motor himself into the right player that he needs to be, and we'll see what happens there. Now we move on to 8 with Consta Helenius. Consta Helenius, to me, is a really high-end forward, another kid who's going to go on to play pro hockey. His overall game, I think, there's some work to be done, but he's still a really talented hockey player. The base that he has is very pro-ready, which is why he's able to play next year. 5'11", $175. Interesting player in terms of he played a lot at the pro level in Liga last year. Had 11 points in 33 games, and will again be this year. Counted upon to do some really big things. We'll look at his profile here. This is a guy who's been very, very much advanced compared to his normal peers in his age group, similar to an Aaron Kivihar, who played the U18s last year. Got over a point per game, played really well, and you got to love the way he goes about his business. Just a really talented hockey player. He's scored at every level, as you can see down there, and he's a genuinely talented hockey player. I love the way he plays. I love the way he manages himself and the way he manifests everything to his ability level. Really impressive player to watch. We'll move on here to 9. 9 for me is Aiden Park. Aiden Park played for Shattuck St. Mary last year as well, part of the group of Celebrini and Iserman. Very, very good hockey player. I think, to me, I aggressively rank Aiden here at 9. That's because I've really liked what I've seen from his tournaments in the last year or so. I thought he played really well the international tournament last year. I thought he was impressive in the way he handled himself as a player. I thought he just managed his game super well. He did well in the exhibition games I'd watched of him. Just a very, very skilled guy. And every tournament he plays in, he doesn't overwhelm you on the score sheet, but you watch how tenacious he is as a player. You watch how he puck rushes. You watch how he does various things, and it's impressive to watch here. So we're going to zoom back up to the start of his profile. He's probably going to play for the Green Bay Gamblers again this year. Could have had the opportunity to play with Artem Levshinov had he not decided to go to the pro level. This is a guy who I think needs that he needs that time though. He's not ranked in the first round by any of the scouting services. I think he's the guy who's going to find himself in the first round in some of these services. So you look here, look at his points. He played prep last year, did a great job there, and then went on to the USHL level. Needs some progression, but I think next year is a good level for him to get at. He's going to probably be, anywhere from 0.75 points per game to about a point per game player, I think, at the USHL level. Really like his game, really like how he approaches the game. He's just super smart in the way he handles everything. Going to go to the University of Michigan in 2025-26. It's going to be impressive to watch this kid grow and develop and become a better hockey player as a result of it as well. We're going to move on here to, actually knocked it off here. Number 10 is going to be another player that we really like to talk about here today. And this is going to be the final guy I'll show a profile for, and then I'll go more in depth with the rest of these guys. But Maxim Masse. This is a kid who plays in the Q. He played last year, I think, a few games. He played at the QMJHL level, nearly a point per game as a 16-year-old. Really impressive. Then he went on and played some playoff hockey. Did really well at the Ivan Holenka this year. This kid the sky's the limit for him. He's a bigger kid at 6'1", 181. Really like how tenacious he is on the puck. Good forechecker, manages his game well. Good all-around player. I think defensively he's super stout too. Just very impressive the way he handles the puck and the way he manages things. He's the overall game. He's super pro ready. A kid who I think he's gonna be quietly underrated for a good amount of this year, and then probably will late rise. There's a ton of potential with this kid. I really like what he brings to the table in this year's draft. So we're gonna move on now to some other guys that are in this draft that we'll want to talk about for sure as well. And I'm going to stop at the screen sharing and everything. So I'm going to just flip over to different guys who I think are going to do really well. And we'll start with Maxim Velikov. Maxim Velikov is a very interesting player in terms of what he's been able to do at the MHL level already. He's nearly, he's over half a point a game in terms of the points he's put up this year. I think he's a guy who, in a normal draft circumstance, I think would be ranked a lot higher, which is why I have him aggressively ranked here. I think there's a lot to like in his game and the way he challenges himself as a player. He brings a lot to the table, and he does a lot of good things that others don't really notice as much as they should. And he'll be an interesting guy to follow going through the rest of this draft year, and a guy who I'm going to be probably trying to watch as much as I can, knowing that you're not going to get as many international viewings on a Russian player as you would elsewhere. Hugo Zetterlund is my first Swede that I have. He's another guy. He's 5'11", $180. Played last year mostly at the U18 level. He's going to have the opportunity to play at the under 20 level this year. Did pretty well at the Holenka Gretzky tournament. Really managed his game overall, did a lot of good things, and just tried to stay as focused as he could through the rest of his games. And, just an impressive player. I think there's still more to give from him. Still more potential that you can see out of him and just managing his overall game. I think there's a lot to like about him, and there's some projectability. I also think there's some growth there from his frame. I think he could get up to a 6'1", 6'2", kind of guy. My 13 overall guy is Christian Epperson, and plays in the U18 program. Another kid from Shattuck St. Mary who has come in and done really good stuff. It's funny how this year all these kids are similarly framed. You're going to get a lot of kids that are in between 5'11" and 6'1" in this draft class. Like, it's just the nature of the beast. Not really sure that it's just how it is. But it's really kind of funny to watch. This is a kid who's uncommitted right now. He doesn't have a college he's committed to. Should be interesting to see where he goes from here. I think there's a ton of skill, ton of potential for him. Like his overall game and what he brings to the table. I look at him like an Oliver Moore. I don't see him as good of a skater, but I see the tenacious ability. I see the way he fights pucks, and he just impresses me all the time. I really like his work rate. I like his work ethic. He's going to come out and he's going to do a lot of good things. So it's just a matter of finding those next steps for him. I think this year is a big year for him, and we'll see where he goes from there. Now we'll move on to another kid at the U18s, at the U18 program, and his name's Camille Benerick. Had in particular a really incredible viewing of this kid when he played for the New Jersey Rockets. Was just phenomenal. He had like a 5-point game, dominated the ice, showed his potential. Another kid again, 5'11", 180 pounds, like just an absolute unit of a player. Though, just loved his tenacity, loved his approach to the game. I would consider him to be a Frank Nazar type player. Um, Another kid who he brings a lot of different elements to his game. He's not necessarily as explosive as a Frank Nazar, but he gets you good quiet offense, and he gets you a lot of good touches on the puck and good potential on the ice. And just a lot to like about his game. There's still more to give for him. I think his work rate's excellent. I think the way he skates is really impressive. I think he's an above average skater in this draft. I think he's going to score a lot more points this year. He's going to be heavily relied upon at the U18 program to bring some secondary scoring along with the likes of an Epperson and Christian Humphreys and some various other guys that are going to come into this draft conversation. And they're going to come in, and there's going to be a lot of them that are going to come into this conversation too. I think this is a strong class this year. Like what you see out of these kids, there's going to be a lot of impressive stuff here. So now you move on to 15. This is where the run on Finn starts. Emil Hemming. Emil Hemming, to me, is a kid who could quietly sneak up into the top 10 of this draft class. A big kid. He's 6'2", almost 200 pounds, and he can skate. He can absolutely skate. Another thing he can do is he's so good at reading the puck. He's so good at understanding where he needs to be and where he doesn't need to be. I think this year he starts at the U20 level. He's going to give himself some pro games, though. I really like what he brought to the table against some of the better teams at the NHL this year. And, he came in and he wasn't afraid. And that's the biggest thing you can ask for out of a prospect like that. And, I have him at 15. I think he's going to be a guy who – this is his floor, in my opinion. I don't think he drops below this, but I think anywhere from, he could be an 8 to 10 guy, by the end of this year. Who knows? We'll see, but we're really impressed by him as a player, really like his overall game and his approach. This Marcus Lopinen is my next pick here. This is a kid who unfortunately got hit by the injury bug during the tournament. He got injured early and, couldn't really do much else, kind of fell out of favor with the staff. Played a lot of the U18s last year in terms of, the U18 loop in Finland, was dominant there. He got himself the opportunity to play some under 20 hockey for a game. And, this is a kid there's a lot to grow still with him, but he's 6'1", 185 with the potential, I think, to be even bigger. Younger player in the draft. There's just a lot to like there. I think there's a ton of potential with him, and I like his overall ability, the way he thinks the game. Next pick here is Tuomas Suoniemi. And, this is a kid who I think is going to find himself at the pro ranks at the end of the year. Playing Messis top. He's going to play at the Messis level probably this year. Really dominated. I had an unbelievable year a couple years ago at the U16 level. 120 points in 38 games. Just an absolute superstar at that level. Played the U18s last year. Didn't really play as well at that level as he should have. Did find some under 20 time though, and played decent at that level. Had a really good It really had a really good Holinka Gretzky tournament this year. This is a kid who's just really smart. He doesn't try to force things. He's a good puck handler. He's elusive. He's fluid as a skater. He does a lot of great things. And it's just fun to see what he does here. I think there's a ton of good potential, a ton of great ability for him as a player. More to give, though, I think, for him. I think there's still some more upside that we have to see out of him. I don't know if there's a limit to what we can see, but I think there's some good potential out of a player like him. We'll move on now to our 18th pick, and that's Alex Zetterberg. Alex Zetterberg is a guy who is super underrated. He's a smaller guy at 5'8". I think he's actually a little bit bigger than 5'8". I think he's closer to 5'7", 5'9.5", 5'10". But my God, is this kid smart? Just constantly finds pucks, finds the opportunity to score goals, is relentless on his puck pursuits. People are going to ask the natural comparison: is he close to the actual Henrik Zetterberg? I would say he is. I would say he's a really good player. I think he's going to obviously probably get drafted higher than Henrik did. But he's got to bring an overall skill set that I think you're going to be really impressed by. There's a ton of good potential out of him as a player. He's going to play at the under 20 level again this year. Might get some pro time, depending on how a team feels about him and what they think they can do with a player like him. And we'll see where it goes from there. Number 19 and number 20, these are two guys who have been probably widely considered the two best players on the Ivan Helenka tournament, but you're wondering, why am I not having these kids in my top 10? Both of these kids have had some character concerns. Trevor Connolly, in particular, is a 15-year-old. Accidentally, I don't know if it was accidentally or what it was, but he did post a photo of a swastika on his Instagram. It's unfortunate that that's the case and that's what happened. It was quickly taken down. No formal apology was ever made on it because, he's a 15-year-old kid. And I don't think anybody really knew this until just now, but you keep the receipts when you read them. This is a kid who's really talented, though. 6 foot, 160 pounds. I think he's probably more than that now. Shifty player, good hands, super smart. Doesn't mess around. Every level he's ever played at, he's been dominant. He'll continue to be dominant at the USHL level this year. He'll have a lot of good matchups against guys like Michael Hage, and he played a lot against Macklin Celebrini this year. It's just a lot to give from Trevor Connolly, but you got to have that talk on whether or not you want a guy like that in your room, whether or not you want that situation to be the problem. Grant, he's grown older and matured, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, it's something it's worked past, and he's able to continue on his life as a hockey player. Normally like you would. And then we're gonna go on to Berkeley Catton. Is our 20th and our last pick we're going to talk about today. As far as Berkeley Catton goes, this is a kid who's been on the radar for this draft for a while. Had this kid as high as 3 or 4 in my mock. Was considered to be a pretty good player overall at the in Saskatoon, and did really well there. And then he went to Shattuck, kind of got challenged a little bit, played well, but kind of left abruptly, and went back to Saskatoon to play more. Then he went on to play for the Spokane Chiefs this year. Did pretty well. Did a good job in terms of managing himself. But the thing that I've noticed the most about Berkeley up until this tournament recently is that anytime he was really challenged with a situation, he had to go and get help. Or he had to go and find a solution for something. Or he had to go and get something different done. There's a lot of worry in the scouting community to wonder, can this kid adjust as well as he should in the National Hockey League? I'm going to drop him as a result of that, just because I think you see it when you see it, and I think there's a lot that can be learned from a player like this to be a really good hockey player and really manage himself very well. And we'll see what happens, but I think there is some work to be done on his end. There's going to be some work to be done on the overall approach to his game and how he manages himself going forward here in the Western Hockey League, as well as in future leagues going forward. But a kid who's got great skill, good ability, nice hands, great puck pursuit. Mentally, though, has got some things to work out. In terms of goalies in this draft, one kid I like in particular, I don't have him ranked right now because I haven't watched enough of him. I've watched clips, though, of him, and I really like his overall game, is Herman Leave, the Swedish goalie. I think, to me, he is the top-ranked goalie that is eligible in this year's class. Smaller guy. I think Herman's only like 5'11", if I remember correctly, which is very atypical of a top prospect. But you watch this kid and the way he covers ground, how mobile he is. He's impressive. He's a young 06 too. I mean, he's 2 weeks away from being, a little bit, later in the group. I think this kid, if he gets up to be about 6 foot 6'1", with the movement he has, the way he covers the net, the way he manages his game, I think he's going to be more likely than not going to be a guy you're going to see in the second round of this year's draft, and we'll see what happens. I think there's just a lot of good potential out of him. I think to me I wouldn't say he's far and away the best, but I think he's a really good prospect to look at. Another goalie that I would consider as well is Emil Vini. Played for Finland in the Henrik Gretzky tournament this year, and I thought he did a great job. He was really impressive. Bigger kid. I watched a couple games of his. I like how fluid he is. I like how he's able to keep himself positionally very sound. Doesn't leave a lot of room for you to shoot on pucks, and he brings a lot to the table there in terms of his overall approach to the game, the way he manages everything. He's very pro ready, and I think the Finns this year are going to be really happy with the crop they have this year. In the last couple of years, I think there's been some kids in Finland that have been really good that have been passed on, and I think these kids are guys that shouldn't be passed on at all. I think they're just getting better and better every year as they keep going here in the next little bit. So don't see any questions in terms of anything on my live stream. So, if you guys have any more, let me know. I will go on for a little bit more in terms of the overall depth of the class, talk about what I think is important on it, and then I'll sign off. But in terms of the overall approach to how I look at these kids, how I manage to find the time to watch all these kids at once, I like to take little clips where I can of these kids and just kind of watch and dissect different things in their game. And then I will go on to watch full games for a lot of these kids. Honestly, most of the top guys I've watched a lot. I've watched Epperson a few times. I've watched Park 4 or 5 times. I've watched Cole 4 or 5 times. Macklin, I need to get a few more viewings on, but the ones I've had have been excellent. Just a super talented class here. I wouldn't say that there are, unbelievably impressive. I think the depth is a little bit different this year than it was last year. I think defensively, it's far and away better than this past year's draft. It's one of the best defensive drafts I've ever covered. I think you're looking for D-man, and you're going to get probably anywhere from 30 to 40 probably in the top 90 this year. I think there's that many good defensemen that are going to be really high-end guys that shouldn't be missed on. At 3 in the top 10, I think you can argue for a lot of different guys this year that are good players that I didn't talk about today. Feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to talk more about the players and where I think they're at and where their skill game is, and ton of potential there. It just depends on who that player is, what they're about, and how are they going to manage their future going forward. But I really like the goaltending class this year is a little weaker, but I think the overall defensive class really makes up for the goalie class that isn't necessarily the strongest. I would say that Herman Leave is a guy who I would think would go in the second, and then you got some other guys that may go 4th or 5th round. I don't know. There's a ton. And Emil Vini is probably a guy who could go in the second round as well. Unless you're getting a major run on goalies, I think you're only going to see 2 or 3 in the second. You may see some more in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. But that's about it where it goes. I think the USHL crop this year is super strong. I would argue that it's just a ton of different prospects from different countries this year that are really impressive. The non-traditional hockey country is starting to get some guys that are coming in here. One guy in particular tracked for a little bit is Maxim Burkov from Estonia. I think he's a guy who could, find his way in the National Hockey League, and could be a guy who, at the very least should get a late round flyer thrown at him. There's also some other guys. You get a couple of Norwegian guys this year that are going to do some really impressive things. Guys like Brenzeg Nygaard. I would argue that Stian Stolberg is going to be a guy who's going to get some looks probably in the 2nd or 3rd round. You're going to look at other guys like Mikael Eriksson, I think, is another kid who could get some late round buzz for Norway. Just depends on what you see there going forward. And, I think there's some other groups of guys who I think could really bring more to the table that I'm really excited about. So, as for now, I'm going to sign off. Thanks again for viewing in on this 2024 live live mock draft. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, see you later.